Thanks a lot to be here at Brno University. I'm very honored that you invited me. Thanks to Jakob and thanks to all of you for your time and attention. I know it's exam season, so it's especially good that you take time, and I'm honored to be here. From the side of EKV, that's called European Kartellverband, but what we are is the pro-European, pro-Ukrainian Christian student fraternities. Christian student fraternities are as old as their universities, and actually they were created in the Czech Republic, in Prague, about 800 years ago with the first university. And from that moment, it's a way that the students who come from different cities to one university center, they unite, and the unity of their association is shown in these colors. That's the history of that one, and they have a hat, and this kind of tradition is ancient. It is with many, many different forms and varieties, and of course, in the tragic of the 20th century, neither the Nazis nor the communists liked this kind of student freedom to unite in different groups and to defend their rights and also to represent themselves and to unite. And therefore, it was forbidden under the Nazis and, of course, in communism. And after the Nazi regime was defeated by American power in 1945, our grandfathers built it up again in Germany and Austria. And now, after the communists 35 years ago were defeated and the Eastern Europeans came to freedom, it's gradually developing as well in the Baltic republics, in Poland, in Romania, in Ukraine, and also in the Czech Republic, because we have now also a student fraternity in Prague. And I want to now officially invite you all on the 3rd of October, 3rd and 4th of October, there will be the 20th anniversary of the so-called Pragensis to Prague. And if you are interested in what we do and you think that's something for you, please join us. You're very welcome in Prague in this weekend. And also, it's my intention, I say it from the beginning very clear, it would be very good if here at your university, in your city, in Brno, there would be a student fraternity or association. It's obviously, I'm also a member of one which takes women and men on equal basis, Merkenstein to Vienna, and it would be wonderful if that could be also developed and established here in Brno. If you want, we can exchange WhatsApp messages and I will keep you posted. And there's a lot of interest in Vienna and in Prague to have a student association here in Brno. If that's the outcome of our event today, that would be wonderful. Yeah, when it comes to explaining a little bit what EKV Christian Student Fraternities is, I make a bit of advertisement. We also try to, it's like a networking club of the students of the same values. Of course, Christianity, of course, Europe, of course, also that we stick together, we hold together, and we are like a club, like you. And also, definitely, we are also networking to be influential in politics. Now the new, and that's why I'm very optimistic actually, the new Chancellor of Germany, Friedrich Merz, he's a member of our federation. And also the new Chancellor of Austria, Mr. Stocker, is also a member of our federation. And many politicians in the European Parliament, like Magnus Brunner, the Commissioner of the Interior and Home Affairs, is also a member of our federation. So a lot of high-ranking politicians are now in responsibility from our federation, and that's very, very good. And we are actually now in responsibility, and we hope we can, I say it always very clearly, but most important is to win the war which Russia is waging against us. We don't want this war. We didn't declare it, but Russia has declared it and is waging this war. And we must defend Europe, we must defend Ukraine, we must win. And that's an important mission for all of us. And now, with this situation, we are hopefully doing that. What are we doing in EKV? For example, what I personally did, I visited together with a delegation of 17 members of EKV in end of March. I was going to Lviv in Ukraine, and we were visiting our member organization, which is 95 years old, Obnova, and there we visited the graves of the fallen soldiers, of the heroes of Ukraine who were dying in the defense of the fatherland and of Europe. And it was very touching and moving. We also had a seminar about how we can support Ukraine. Our association has already developed, fundraised 3 million euros in the last 3 years to support Ukraine. And also we do a lot of pro-Ukrainian solidarity. And also this visit was part of our solidarity. And this is one of the activities which is, I think, very meaningful, because now Ukraine and support of Ukraine is ultimately the most important thing anybody can do, because this is the question of our time, and we must win this war, and we must support Ukraine to win. For example, 2 weeks ago, we do a lot of memorial things. I was going to Mauthausen, where was the 80 years of the liberation of that concentration camp on Sunday, and we participated as a big delegation with 80 people in the liberation ceremony. It was also very meaningful and very important to show the fight and the victory over Nazism. And on the weekend, it was the same weekend, it was also European Day, so we went also to the border with the Czech Republic and Upper Austria, where I come from. I'm from Linz, and we went to the border position where in the 30 years of communism, our two countries were separated with an Iron Curtain, and we have a memorial at our side. And we went together with the Deputy Foreign Minister from the Czech Republic and the Austrian Minister of Economic Affairs, of European Affairs, and had a ceremony to celebrate our victory over communism and the unity of Europe, which I think was also very meaningful, like 1 weekend of activity to show the fight against authoritarian regimes in Europe and the victory of the free world. So this is the activities what we do. We also do a lot of singing, dancing and drinking, but that's part of the culture, so that's basically what these people here, what we do. And it's a nice activity. We are not a secret service or a secret club or something. We are on the internet, we are on Instagram. This is actually the way Jakob found us. I think you saw some of my Instagram tweets on the activities. Yes, and so that's why I'm here. And I'm very happy to be here. And again, I make advertisement. If you want to be with us, you're welcome. It's a wonderful thing to do. I had a lot of fun at my student and times, that now I'm still doing the same when I'm 56 is a little bit, everybody's asking why, but the idea is that we are basically lifelong members. It's a lifelong membership. I pay membership in my student fraternities, so that a lot of young people who are now young people in my fraternity, like we start with 15 years in Austria, in my hometown. So I started when I was 14, and I have now members in my fraternity which are also 15 years. They go to high school, they are there. I support them with my membership fee. I will also support them when they grow up to be at the university, when they look a place in the student home. I support them with this, and when they're looking for jobs or when they look for other things, I will always support them, because we believe in the same things, we have the same colors, we are in the same club from 15 to until we die. In the student fraternity it works like this. I'm also going to many funerals. You always then say goodbye to your brother or to your sister, and you sing the same songs at the funeral. So it's a lifelong membership, and that's why I'm still here in my age. So I'm no longer a student, because I studied 35 years ago at the Vienna University, and that was the year when the Cold War has ended, and we basically brought down the Iron Curtain. I always say it very clearly that we won. This is my perspective. I know that some people say, no, this was a soft opening of the East, but ultimately I see it like this: we won. It was a victory. We have defeated the communists. They were the evil empire. We have won, and you are very welcome. And we built a much better Europe now, with Europe of the European Union, of NATO, and of the Euro. And that's very good. And when I was actually, that's also for my life story a little bit, I came to Vienna from Linz. Like many of you come from the regions here to come to Brno. I went to Vienna. There suddenly everything was open, and I was very happy about it. And then I started to be engaged in the school student union, and then I was in the student union of Austria. I was the international officer of the Austrian Student Union, and I went to all the neighboring countries, and I told them, let's work together. And then I was elected as the president of the European Democrat Students, which is the European People's Party student movement in '96, and I was 2 years chairman of that movement in the Czech Republic, it's the students of the ODS, of the Klaus party, of Václav Klaus party, which is the member, and I was happy to be the chairman for that for 2 years, and it was my task to find new member organization. I was traveling basically to all the countries of Eastern Europe to find new member organizations for our Christian Democrat Conservative Youth Student Association. And so I had the honor to see all the countries like Slovakia and Czech Republic now here, but every country almost, not with the exemption of 2 in the Baltic countries. But I was in all the countries and I saw how desperate the situation was in '96. And that's why I'm still, 30 years later, a very big fan of the European Union and of NATO and all the things we do, because I know exactly how it was then. And it was very bad. What the communists have done to Eastern Europe, basically they have frozen the development on the level of 1945, and they have done a little bit of reconstruction, a little bit of economic investment. But it was really very desperate situation, especially in Albania, especially in Romania, but also in the more developed countries like Slovak Republic was always, and Czech Republic, you were the richer parts of the Austrian monarchy, you were the industrial hard places, the defense industry and the industrial core of our common market of the Austrian monarchy was here, you know that very well. And it was more richer, actually, than most of Western Austria, for example, which was more rural. But it was all in a desperate situation. And now, 30 years on, it has all worked very well. Our machine has been stuttering a bit compared to the Americans and to the Chinese, and I will also discuss why in this presentation. But in generally, we are very successful. We can be proud about what we do, and we basically need more unity. What I propose is very simple to be explained. We need more unity in NATO, in the EU, in the Euro, in Schengen, in WTO, in the OECD. It's very simple philosophy. It's not, you need not to be a political scientist to understand it. When it's good for Slovakia and for Austria to be in the Eurozone, it's very good as well for the Czech Republic. When it's good for the Slovaks and for the Czechs to be in NATO, it's also good for the Austrians to be in NATO. And if it's good to be in the WTO for almost everybody in the world, it's also good for Kosovo, for Bosnia, and for Serbia, for example, or for Azerbaijan. But unfortunately, we have not been able to make a list of what's missing to be done and then to systematically work on it, because everybody is very special in the world. Everybody thinks it's very special. You know, that's also good, because everybody is very special. From the Holy Almighty downwards, everybody is a very special individual and everybody has its own opinion, but there is no reason why the Slovaks have not recognized Kosovo. There is no reason why the Romanians have not done it. There is no reasons why the Austrians and Hungarians are not bringing weapons to Ukraine, for example, and there is no reason for Austrian neutrality, and there's also no reason for the UK to leave the European Union. And some say I'm a dreamer. Yes, okay, it's all true. I'm a little bit fantasist. You can say that as well. But the truth is, you know, you either believe in the things and then it's true for all Europeans, or you don't believe in the things and you say the Czechs have the better way because they have the krona and you think you are smarter than the rest. Okay, it's one way to do it, but I say this is not reasonable. So, by the way, I just make one advertisement from time to time. I'm kind of invited also as a social media personality. So if you are on Twitter, or I have a very nice handle, I'm very entertaining because I'm not so powerful person. So I have to be a little bit more funny than the politicians. I try to, at least on my social media personality. So if you follow me on that one, you are very welcome. If you follow me on Instagram, you're very welcome. And also if you follow me on YouTube, I have also a YouTube channel where I will release this video afterwards. And so you are very welcome to follow me. And I'm very happy about every published photo or tweet or selfie. Good, that's a little bit of advertisement. What I have done after the 90s, I went to Brussels. Brussels is very good. I know that in the Czech Republic you have some Eurosceptics, and it's popular to be against Brussels. But ladies and gentlemen, dear friends from the students and dear international friends, Brussels is all of us. Brussels is not somebody else. Brussels is us. Yeah. we, huh? It's you. Huh? And you cannot be against Brussels if you're a European. Yeah? It's not an occupying power like Mr. Orban is telling it to somebody. But Brussels is what we want together as Europeans. If you have not gotten out of Brussels what you want, yeah, then go there and be more effective and build better coalitions, because it's always done by majorities. Majorities in the EU councils, majorities in the EU parliament, and then, you know, at least, for example, I'm not so fan of all this green policy which we have done the last 10 years, but it was the majority and it was the population who wanted it. You know, I think Brussels could do more for Ukraine, but they have done a lot. And so if you in any democracy, and Brussels is a European democracy, you have to basically win majorities and to implement your policies. If you're not happy, then like Orban, destroying the tool because you lost one vote, or like the British to leave because you don't like the toy, this is very harmful for your population. This is very negative. And I have no understanding for the Euroscepticism of the Czech Republic, because look, please, how you were poor and desperate like 35 years ago, and now you are even in some aspects richer. Prague, for example, is richer in relative terms than Vienna. And if that's not from Europe and from the NATO and from our institution, from what else? Of course, also from your energy and from your tax system and many other things, but a clear, loud yes to Brussels and Europe would be really very welcome. Then later, I had the honor to serve 4 years. I went to Brussels, I got a job working for a European parliamentarian, and the title was very grandiose, Secretary General of the European People's Party of SME Union, and that was for small and medium enterprises. So I'm an economist, I'm actually focusing on economic reforms. So in short version, in the year 2000, we have promised in the European Union that we will be the most competitive economy in the world and the most successful, knowledge-based, beautiful, and we will all be rich together. And in relative terms, it has worked. But unfortunately, or fortunately, for many factors, the Chinese were much more successful. But it's also good if the Chinese are successful, so why not? And we compare ourselves with an emerging country which has 16 times more prosperity, good. But when you see that we have really also doubled the GDP, but it took us 25 years, and we have not done that every 10 years. Look, why? Because people like me and my ideological belief, I'm economic liberal, we have always said, guys, we need lower taxes in Europe. And countries like the Czech Republic has implemented it. You had, and I was actually together under the leadership of Ivan Miklos, very much lobbying for that. In the 2000s, you have introduced this 15% flat tax, and it made the situation 25 years later. You see a lot of millionaires, and your Czech businessmen, they're buying now Austrian companies. So big success. We have not done the same in Germany, we have not done the same in Austria, and now it's the business people from Eastern Europe, or from the new countries, who are taking over our companies. It's the Albanians who are coming to take over the bakeries, and it's the Czechs who are taking over our casinos and our industrial assets. Because why? Because you allowed much more capital accumulation in the hand of a rich elite, because you rewarded hard work with the flat tax. We have 55% of top taxes. Of course, later you have diffused the situation a little bit and you introduced a more complicated tax system, but more or less all Eastern European countries really went for economic reforms, and this was very successful, so we can be happy and proud. And we have made many, many other statements in the 25 years ago. And again, I can say we have basically saved the new countries, the 13 new countries, have saved the European Union throughout the financial crisis when we were really like shaking. It was the dynamics of Poland, of the Czech Republic, of Romania, which has been much more dynamic. And we have basically, because of the 100 million new people which we took into the internal market, we were very successful the last 15 years. Thanks a lot to the Czechs, and thanks a lot to the Slovaks, and to the Romanians, because it has helped in the labor market, it has helped the whole dynamic, and it was also very good for you. So what we need to do now, because unfortunately Austria and Germany are not reformable, because we have a very big economic left consensus, we have to basically, also the only way for reform of Europe is new enlargement round. And for many of these reasons, I have been working in Eastern Europe in the last 15 years, and I helped to economically reform Kosovo, Ukraine, and all the other countries. And now what we need to do is a new enlargement round. And I hope that the Czech Republic will be the first one to please say yes to enlargement for Ukraine, for Moldova, for the Balkans, everybody but Serbia. Serbia obviously cannot join the European Union because it's run by a pro-Russian regime and by basically a tyranny. Everybody who follows my Twitter account will anyhow know that, but Serbia currently cannot. But Albania, yes. Montenegro, yes. North Macedonia, yes. Bosnia, yes. Kosovo, yes. Ukraine, absolutely. And Moldova, yes. But the two countries which Putin has basically taken over, Georgia and Serbia, of course, at that moment when you are not politically in the European Union, when you're not part of the free world, how can you join a political union? This is impossible. So that's my fight for economic freedom in Europe in the last 25 years, which we have actually, I'm personally now after 25 years, I'm actually quite happy. We have achieved 10% flat tax in Bulgaria, 10% flat tax in Bosnia, 10% flat tax income and corporate in all cases in Kosovo and in Macedonia. I lost my bottles in Albania. It was a socialist who has increased the taxes. I somehow lost it again in Slovakia and Czech Republic because now you have a tax for super rich people, but it's at a very high level. So more or less the biggest tax level as well is at 23 or 25, which is okay and much better than 55%. Yeah? Yes, and then some short words about Austria. I came back after my time in Brussels. I came back to Austria. It was half a year because I was like a pro-European in an anti-European country which didn't want to reform, and it didn't work. Because Austria, unfortunately, as much as I love my home country, is an unreformable country. They want to be neutral, they want to make business with Russia, they want to make the social welfare state at a very high level and keep the taxes at 55 and be as prohibitist, xenophobic and protectionist as possible. And that was my short time in Austria in 2005. And I didn't like it, and then I left to the Balkans. I have to tell you that Mr. Miklos and Mr. Djurinda, they were at the 60th birthday party of Mr. Schüssel, and I remember very well, and we were standing together at that party in 2005, and we said, Austria must reform. And they were absolutely yes, and what we must reform, Ukraine in the EU, flat tax and NATO. And I said yes, but I was the only one of the Christian Democratic Party who said yes. Austria has not reformed since then, and yeah, and the topics are still the same. So I was very disappointed, and I went to the Balkans. I was then 11 years living in Kosovo and Albania. These are actually wonderful countries. If you can visit in the summer Albania, we have been very successful in tourism promotion. Bring your parents, your girlfriends, and your boyfriends, and everybody. Take a car and go. It's now a train going from Brno to Rijeka. And you can go buses. I travel a lot by the bus in the Balkans. It's working very well. It's very cheap. So with Flixbus you can go everywhere. And this is an efficient bus system. If you don't have a car, you can go by public transport. It's really wonderful countries and full of pro-European people. Not in Serbia, though. Anyhow, even in Serbia, the people are very pro-European. The students of Serbia stand in solidarity with Europe, and they are very much against the tyrant Vucic. And please also do some event in solidarity with the blockada, because the young people of Serbia try since about 30 years to get first rid of Milosevic and then rid of Vucic. But unfortunately, the Russian-backed energy and mafia of the Serbian state is so powerful that they have no chance. And still, when they try with hundreds and thousands of people courageously to protest every week, so please, students of Brno, stand in solidarity with your brothers and sisters of Serbians, pro-European students. Yes, coming to the Balkans, what I did there was advising on economic reform. And again, I can just tell you, it's wonderful countries. They really deserving of Europe, and the logic is simply that all the NATO allies and the pro-NATO countries, Kosovo, Bosnia are still not in NATO, but they are very good countries. They want to join NATO. They can join NATO as soon as possible. Please support them. And all the other countries are in NATO already, like Montenegro, Albania, North Macedonia. They can be voting like you in the Czech Republic have voted in 2004. They can vote in 2029 if we are smart, and we should be smart. We should support them. This is every step further, which we achieve something like Slovakia recognizing Kosovo, Albania in the EU, Austria in NATO, and Czech Republic in the Euro, Romania and Schengen. Everything is a bonus point on our list and a negative for Putin. Because what does Russia want? It wants us to fail. It wants us not to be successful. They say no to the Euro, no to Schengen, no to the W, no to NATO, and to keep us divided. That's a plus for Russia, who is a united, centralistic superpower, aggressive, and our enemy. So please, everything helps. So that was my 11 years in the Balkans, in the short version, and then I went 4 years to Ukraine, and it's very simple. Ukraine must win, Ukraine must be liberated, Ukraine must be in NATO, Ukraine must be in the EU, Ukraine must be in the Euro, Ukraine must be in the OECD and in Schengen. And tell me one reason why this shouldn't happen. It's very clear, and we must give them the tools. And I'm actually very honored that you in the Czech Republic, under the leadership of the great president, Pavel, and he is really one person I admire in the world, because he came, he changed everything, he replaced all these pro-communist, pro-Russian presidents in the past, and he said, we will do simply as Czech Republic this ammunition initiative for Ukraine, and he collected more than the whole European Union together just by his leadership. Thank you very much, Czech Republic. Slava Ukraine, he is a real hero of mine, and perfect, yeah? So, about Ukraine, it's very simple, we must win. Losing is not an option. And do we really want to have the Russian army standing at the Polish border? Certainly not. At the Romanian border. That it will be the Czechs and you who will be called for service to defend the free world at that borders to the enemy. Now it's the Ukrainians. They give their blood. I was in Lviv at the cemetery. 800 young people like you are lying there dead in this war, just in Lviv. You can see all the flowers and the flags, and the graves. And, this is the result of Russian aggression. Russia is the enemy. Russia is aggressor. Russia must be stopped. Russia must give up Crimea and Donbass. They have no right to be there, and we must support militarily Ukraine until victory. And victory is not just militarily, but also institutionally, politically, meaning full NATO integration, full EU integration, full Euro integration, and it's very clear, and no compromises with aggressor state. That's on Ukraine. Then I returned 2020 into Austria, and it was again a big shock for me. I really love my country. I'm not coming to Czech Republic to talk negatively about my own country, but you are basically producing nuclear power, which we in Austria consume in order to keep our steel companies in Austria, which we never could do without Temelin. We would have to close the steel factory in Linz, and no jobs in steel in Austria without Czech nuclear power. But we always make you many issues and be very aggressive to your state representative in Brussels and are very annoying to you. How fair is that? And it's very annoying. And then we are neutral. That means that you in the Czech Republic, in the Slovak Republic, in Hungary, in Slovenia are like our shield. Your young people have to defend the Austrian state, because we can basically not defend ourselves, and we stay neutral. I think that's very bad, and that's immoral, and that's against European solidarity. So Austria should join NATO, and we should be serious, and that would be my last statement here in this beautiful session. I want to thank you very much for my invitation. In concluding, again, it's very simple, and I look for allies here and for friends. We can work together, and we can support each other in this social media world, and also in the real world of Czech politics. Be pro-European, join the Eurozone, and support EU enlargement and support Ukraine's integration and victory and liberation. And that's what we have to do. And the final Slava Ukraine victory will come. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. If you have any questions, please write them down, because we have prepared our own questions, and some more questions can arise during the discussion.
Yeah, any questions will be welcome.
So we invite you to be active. There's the perfect number of us that we can have a normal discussion here with our special guest. And thank you for the beautiful speech. It was very nice. It summarized all of the values that we basically share, and it is nice to have someone who shares them, even in Austria, unfortunately, now being outside of NATO, and we will see how it goes.
Time will come.
Time will come. So, the questions.
Yeah, well, the first question is, do you think that there's a like the future of Ukraine within NATO is going to be, in the future, is there really a chance for the country to join NATO? Like, for example, like Meloni has proposed, some amendment towards Article 5 to give like some exemption instead of them joining NATO, that this will be activated in case of when Ukraine is attacked, instead of because of the objections towards the country joining NATO. Is that a possibility? Do you think that there should be no compromise at all whatsoever?
Absolutely, Ukraine must join NATO. This war is ultimately about this. Does Ukraine, like the Czech Republic, have the right to choose her own alliances? Yeah? So the Czechs had it. Yeah? You were the first one to join after the end of the Cold War, and together with Poland and Hungary, and this was the right thing to do. And the Ukrainians are just normal Europeans. They have the right to join NATO, and they should. And it's our obligations actually to make it. And the faster we have said yes and we integrated it, the faster the war will be over. Because this is what the war is ultimately about. So Ukrainians' NATO membership is unnegotiable and absolutely a condition for a sustainable peace in Ukraine.
And what about Austria's membership to NATO? I mean, you really advocate for the fact that Austria should revoke its neutrality and that it should join NATO. Like, how is that even possible? Like, how?
It's very simple. The way Austria got neutral was always very connected with German post-war status, because in the war, of course, there was Anschluss. Austria was part of Germany, then became the liberation, and then came the division like in Germany. And it was very clear after Stalin has lost the Korea War. He basically died in '53 under unclear circumstances. I think he was basically removed by his closest peers because he has lost the Korea War. He was very much for a new war in Europe as well. So what happened in this post-Stalin's death chaos was an opportunity how to settle the post-war situation in Germany and in Austria. So for geographic reasons, Brno and Vienna are about the same line here in the east. Yeah? So Vienna is very much to the east of Europe, if you see something like that. And so there was basically an offer by the Soviets, you can be neutralized and sovereign. And the reason why Austria got this deal was basically to undermine the West integration of Western Germany. Because Adenauer said, I want to be in NATO, I want to be protected and fully in the West. Yeah? And so that was basically the effort the Soviet Union showed. This sovereignty deal is possible in the case of Austria in order to stop the NATO integration of Western Germany. The NATO integration of Western Germany saved us, because how we really won the war, the Cold War, it was of course 30 years later, but we have been able as West to develop the Western German industrial resources as part of the West, and also have a showcase towards the East how Western Germany can be rich under American basically value and democratic system. And so that's why communism ultimately fell, as one of the main reasons. And so for us, this neutrality deal was at the time necessary. I am not criticizing neutrality in 1955, but I criticize it after we joined the European Union as a political union in 95. We should have dismantled it and said, and more or less legally, because of all the progress in the EU treaties, we are not anymore neutral because we are under Article 42 anyhow obliged to help the Czechs in case of attack. But of course it was convenient because the Austrians now can say, you know, there's war in Ukraine and it's their thing. And our young people don't have to defend other people, just the Austrians. And then we have underinvested. We went to 0.67 of GDP for defense, and we have increased our pension redistribution to unprecedented level. So we are very generous to the pensioners, but we are not very generous to defending ourselves, knowing that the Czechs and the Hungarians anyhow have to defend themselves in case of attack, and the Americans will come. So it was a convenient political situation for the Austrians. And then comes also the fact that Mr. Putin really loves the Austrian model, out of the same reason why Khrushchev loved the Austrian model, because it's convenient to have a neutral kind of small country where you can hide all your money and where you have a place to meet. Your secret service can act without impunity. Everybody is nice to my KGB headquarters in Vienna, and I can bring all my 26 billion of money into Vienna, and the banks are also nice and kind to me, and I'm treated like a star, even when I was just invading Crimea in 2014, Mr. Putin now, in June, he was treated like a state guest in Vienna, welcomed with the president, with the Chamber of Commerce, and treated like a superstar. This I call in my podcast, Pax Europiana, you can listen, I call it as the visit of shame, because it was the ultimate submission of the Austrian political system under the Tsar Putin, under these circumstances of him aggressing Ukraine. And we have basically been very shameful behavior. It's really very shocking. And this is the result of all these things. It's a result of the energy policy. Austria was always the place where the gas ends in the west and is distributed to Italy and Germany, and the gas is turned into dollars, and the dollars are hidden in the Austrian system and then used for buying products which the Soviet Union or Russia needs. And that was very convenient for many years, and now it had to stop. And also neutrality has to stop, because ultimately it's immoral, it's against European solidarity, it's very unfair to the young people of Brno, and it's very unfair to the Austrians themselves, because we are not secure, we are not fully part of the West, and we are like not really fully part of the system of the European Union with this kind of, hey, you defend us and we don't care for you. And if you make opinion polls in Austria and you ask the population, should the Europeans defend the Austrians? And then 90% of them are in favor that you defend us. And when you ask the other question, should we defend the Czechs and the Slovaks? And then the Austrians say 20% say yes. Yeah? And you know, this is kind of, it's not the idea, I think so. And this is simply a traditional thing which is left over from the Cold War, which under the situation of Europe, under pressure from the East by aggressive genocidal power Russia, and on the West by our traditional protection power America, being now run by anti-European ideology, we cannot afford to do everything like we did it once in the past, yeah? Because it was convenient. Yeah? We cannot afford that. And I always ask your politicians and the Slovak politicians, ask the Austrians, why do they not discuss neutrality? Is this fair to your voters? Is this fair to the Slovak young people who have the defense burden and the Austrians not? Is this fair? And nobody has said, yes, it's very fair. Everybody says, yeah, we are so diplomatic in the EU, we cannot ask our Austrian friends, because of course they are all working together on other issues. But really, seriously, it's totally unfair and it's not acceptable, neither for Malta, neither for Cyprus, neither for Moldova, which is also neutral, and neither for Ireland. We all have our specific histories of colonial things and of our whatever kind of traditions, But we must be, as responsible politicians, able, under this kind of pressures, to ask ourselves, actually, why we do that, and can we not be better now when we need to be better? This is, I think, a moral question for every politician in Europe, and it's not just the Austrian question, because the only Austrian question, why Austria is neutral, I have not explained in detail, but you know, the whole reason for the existence of Austria after the First World War and after the Second World War, and the neutrality is always basically only one, that here's Germany and here's Italy. They were, after World War, both Italian occupied, liberated, American occupied and liberated, and Austria is between and is like a neutral bloc together with Switzerland, which is very harmful for the defense logistics of Europe. Yeah? And that's the only reasons why the main reason why the Soviets always wanted that, or the French wanted that after the First World War. And you know, when you have such a history, then you can be a little bit modest and not go around like Mr. Kurz, Sebastian Kurz, a guy I really don't like very much, and he is actually then going to Ukraine and Kosovo and say, Austrian neutrality is a wonderful role model, and why you were attacked Ukraine? Because you were not neutral enough. Try Austrian neutrality. And what do you think when you're a Ukrainian foreign minister, Klimkin was at that time, and also when you are a Kosovo public official, what do you think when you hear from a young Austrian guy that you need to be more neutral in order to defend yourself, because you're basically responsible yourself that Russia or Serbia has attacked you and started a genocide against your people? Then you think, and exactly this is the unfair thing about neutrality, when it's then exported as a role model. And so I'm absolutely against neutrality. It must change.
It must change. I mean, the impetus from the political parties in Austria, that must be also important. Like, I'm quite sure FPÖ is quite for neutrality. I don't know about the other parties, ÖVP, SPÖ, and the Neo-Greens. Is there any impetus right now for them to, you know, let's join NATO, let's remove neutrality from our constitution, and let's join immediately?
Yeah, in politics often very much I compare it with the issue of the Eurozone membership in the Czech Republic. For some reasons most of the parties are against it, and nobody really dares to mention it because they think it's unpopular, I will not be elected, and blah blah blah. And so the courage is not a big commodity in politicians. Yeah? The same is with neutrality in Austria. After some decades where in the constitution and in the media all the young people were taught in the school, you must be neutral because that's for peace. Yeah? And then the young people say, I'm for peace, yes, I'm neutral, that's the same. Yeah? And we are a successful country because we are neutral. And then when a politician says, no, we are defended always by the Americans. Yeah? When the Americans left us in 55, they have hidden weapons in Austria in order to be ready when they come back from Bavaria or from Italy, where the military bases of the Americans are to this day. And they had their plan to come back any time if the Soviet Union might come back. So in reality, we always lived under NATO nuclear and military defense and protection, and we have never explained it. And then the people believe it, and that is because of neutrality. And then the politicians say, oh, okay, maybe I don't say that, because if I'm the first one, then the people will be against me and I will get no votes. Yeah? I understand that logic, but it's not really very courageous or fantastic. And the politicians always tell us we should have values, we should have moral, we should be good people. But when it's them to confront some basic truths, then they lack the value and the ability of clear speaking. And they say, yeah, but we are not military, we are just military neutral, but politically we stand with Ukraine. But we don't give any weapons. And so the Ukrainians obviously need weapons, we don't give it. So what is the idea of political military neutrality? It's in fact immoral. When it comes to the parties, you know very well in the Czech Republic and also in Austria, the Russians are funding all the extreme left-wing parties and all the extreme right-wing parties. And they fund everybody else as well who is ready to preach their gospel, because the Russians have no specific intention to support the extreme right or the extreme left. Yeah? And they are just interested to support anybody who sings their song. And the better, the more powerful they are, the song singers, the more money they get. Yeah? So that's how they buy influence everywhere. You have to understand, and it's not easy to understand, for the Russians, all these European states, when you see it from the Kremlin, it's not that this is like a sovereign Czech Republic, Austria. For them, these are only oblasts. There's the Austrian oblast, there's the Czech oblast, and all of them are to be governed exactly like the Leningrad oblast. Yeah? There's one guy in charge, there's one oligarch who can manage influence, and there's, I don't know, in Austria, for example, the oligarch who is in charge for Austria is Mr. Deripaska. It's very clear. And he knows there are Austrian big business people and the politician, and he buys his influence. I don't know how it works in the Czech Republic, but you know, all countries are to be managed. There's always a share of the energy revenue to be distributed, and there is somebody to be threatened, somebody to be bought, and this they have done all the time. This they do since 200 years, even in the Russian Empire, and they have done it in France. It's very well documented how they bought specific French politicians, and they have done it in America, and they are doing it in Austria, and they're doing it in Czech Republic. And you know, of course, they're very smart. It's not to be documented, and it will never be easily to be clear. But we had in Austria, for example, the case where the FPÖ, this is the right-wing party of Austria, this is our opponents, and they have been, the Russian embassy sending the application, what they should say in the parliament, every nice application, 20,000 euros. This is the idea of small cooperation, and there's also bigger cooperation. But obviously they are smart enough not to make it so easily to be documented, and of course you can be sure that they are doing sabotage in Europe. Of course you can be sure that they are doing against the ammunition industry in the Czech Republic and Bulgaria. It's all well documented. Of course they're waging an information war. Of course they have basically allowed free booty run on all of our companies in the case of cyber attacks. It's basically an unpunishable crime in Russia today to attack any Czech or Austrian company, and they're doing it thousands and thousands of times every day in all European companies, blocking their accounts, asking for blackmail money, and Putin even praises them. And no law enforcement goes to Novosibirsk and chases some young hacker, or they have even industrialized this in full scale. Yeah? This is the reality we are in today. Our politicians don't want to explain it because they say, oh no, better not say it like this because Putin can be then focusing much more on me, and so it is. Yeah. So when it comes to the influence, of course there's massive influence on the political parties, but okay, we are not useless in Europe, and with time we adopt, and now the centrist parties of Europe have started a process to clean themselves from the pro-Russian elements. And I would say that we have been quite successful in Austria and Germany. All the pro-Russian elements in CDU, SPD are massively decreased in the power and influence. The leadership of Friedrich Merz and of Stocker in Austria are very, very pro-European, pro-Ukrainian, and we're gradually moving ahead. And these links between funding and AfD and FPÖ are now exposed in the public. And I think we are moving in the good direction here, and we will win all these debates in the next 5 years, and we better should, because imagine a world where Russia dominates Europe without American protection and without European unity. It would be a very terrible world living under Putin's regime, and definitely nobody wants that.
Nobody does. Anyone has questions?
What do you do about the politicians who are anti-EU, anti-NATO, and trying to leverage votes from it?
No, yeah, I'm 35 years in this debate as well, from EDS times. You know, the British, there are very few British who are anti-NATO. The anti-NATO, these are maybe some leftists from the leftover Cold War, yes, but there's of course a big group who is anti-EU. And they even got tragically, with Russian support, the referendum victory, which I think was very unfair to do such a big constitutional question as leaving the EU with such a small majority of just 52. which has deprived so many people of great opportunities, and now they are gradually coming back. And actually, there is a majority in the British public for the EU now. And I hope that they will also join back again, rejoin, absolutely. This is the only reasonable way to do, because the European Union is the union of freedom. It's the union of freedom of capital. It's the union of freedom of people to move, to work, to study, to do what they want. And that's ultimately a very British idea, because the whole British idea was always for a free Europe. So how can they not join and deprive the young people of that opportunities? It's absolutely ununderstandable, and I'm very optimistic that also the politicians will move that forward onwards. And it's all connected, obviously, with the fact, can we win the war or not? Are we attractive or not? If we lose, nobody will join us. If we win and we dominate basically by our ideologically the free world, by showing that we won the war in Ukraine, also the British, who are actually instrumental for Ukraine's victory and liberation and defense, they will also come back and join us. But in a certain way, of course, in the big empires like France and the UK, there's a little bit of nostalgia towards imperial past. This was, of course, a position they had by coincidence or luck or hard work or brutality. They have achieved in the world that 1/3 of the world, or 25%, was dominated by the British until the end of the Second World War, when they went basically bankrupt and had to give up most of the world in the decolonization process. So why it was happening? Because they basically had this kind of dream of superiority and great opportunities with India, and some part of the elite has not really closed that chapter, and they always felt it very annoying to sit in the European Parliament with a lot of other Europeans and to be equal, because that's a bit of a critical point. Some people still have a little bit of a sense of superiority in the British elite, and they thought it's really annoying to sit with the Polish and Romanian lawmakers together and to decide about how construction site security is managed in the UK. But that's what we do in Europe. We do a lot of small things, but together they are very fair, and they are very good for everybody, and they provide a basic prosperity for millions of more people, and also security. So it's very good, and it's just unfair as well that they, as one of the richest countries in the world, move out of the European Union just when we have taken in 13 new poor countries, and then they didn't want to share the costs of rebuilding them, because the European Union is very much about sharing with the poorer Eastern Europeans who were the victims of communism. They have, of course, more budget in Poland, they have more budget in Romania and in Czech Republic, and also it's your people who want to work in the UK. And after 15 years of that, they said, it's a bit of a burden here, and then they bugger off. How fair is that? And then they leave the German, Austrian, Swiss taxpayers with paying the bills, and having also to explain our voters that we have that's good, and it's very good for everybody, and we made a lot of business and success. But it's of course necessary for the UK to return, and I'm optimistic they will.
Do you think Canada should join the EU?
I principally think it's a bit of a funny idea, but I think yes, ultimately if they want, why not? Why not? Europe is not a geographically limited enterprise. And we have, with the case of Canada, Australia, New Zealand, 3 countries which are very clearly European in their mindset, in their philosophy.
Well, Austria is a member of Eurovision, so...
Austria, and you mean
Australia, sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, they mix it up. We are without the kangaroos. But no, yeah, sorry, it's a short word. I think it's possible to think in that way. But the more realistic way is, of course, we have already a free trade agreement. I'm not sure if the Czech Republic has ratified. Austria has, Germany has not, but it's in force and it's very well working. So additionally to a free trade agreement, you are the political science department, you know we have in the economic integration theory of states, we have various levels. The lowest is the free trade agreement, then it's the common market, then it's the currency union, then it's the political union. This is how the theory works. Yeah? So we can obviously go in from a free trade agreement towards a common market. Why not? Huh? Why not have free movement between the Europeans and the Canadians? Why not allow the Canadians, who are many of them anyhow European origin people, they can work in Austria as well, in the Czech Republic? Why not allow the Czechs to work freely in Canada? Why not to go? Why not, for example, what I'm a big theorist as well about is monetary union. You know, they have the Canadian dollar, and it's always very difficult with the big neighbor. Why shouldn't they have the euro? Yes, why not? You know, we have maybe, you know, until 71, the world was having a very stable currency system, and the huge costs of the Vietnam War has led Mr. Nixon to end the currency link of dollar to the euro, and the stability of the world has dropped significantly. It's called the Nixon shock in economic theory of 71, and this has lost to this disastrous 70s, where the Soviet Union and their allies, also you were ally of the Soviet Union, you could take over another 20 countries in the world, yeah? And the economic of the world was devastated, yeah, because of this. So more currency stability by extending the area where the euro is, yeah, is a big win for global prosperity and for global freedom. So that's why I'm so critical to countries like Hungary, Czech Republic, or Sweden, or Romania, who have basically been in the EU, in NATO, getting all the benefits, and then the last step towards the Eurozone, you have not done because you found out that your fragile feeling of identity, which the Czechs very much have, because you are a very diverse country as well. You have always these feelings that the Austrians and Germans, Sudetenland, you are like Austria as well. We are all very fragile identity countries. So you felt it necessary, your political leaders felt it necessary to boost the patriotism of Czech Republic with the krona. What is the worth of a nationalism, of a patriotism, of love to your country when it's based on your currency? I mean, is this all you can be proud? Do you not have any better heroes than the krona? Is it that? And anyhow, you promised to join the Eurozone. But then you found, you know, you are a little bit insecure, like everybody, but you know, it's like this in Eastern Europe. We were part of big empires. We are now 26 different countries, and not the Austrian Empire, the German Empire, the Russian Empire, or the Turkish Empire, which were only 4 empires everywhere east of Europe. And now we are 26, 20, 30 countries, let's say. So then everybody is a bit, you know, the elite, the state-forming elite, yeah, like so the Czech people, and you should look white, and you should be nice and Christian. Then you feel that you need to promote this patriotism. Mostly in the 20th century, we have done it by discrimination against minorities, yeah, and we're still doing it, unfortunately, to the Roma and Sintis and others, yeah, or by the currency, and you know that's wrong. Because the only way the Czech Republic can reach Austrian or German prosperity level is by the solidarity community of the euro. So your own politician, by appealing to your patriotism, they deprive you of the only tool which is there left for you to join, to be full member of the European Union, also economically and currency-wise, which makes the possibility for reducing the last barrier for you to reach German and Austrian prosperity level. With all respect, you are now still half as rich as the Austrians per GDP per capita. You are about 26,000, and Austria is by 52, something like this. You know, it's always changing every year, but it's about the parameter. In one generation, you have reached half of our level. And I hope you will reach very fast our level, and we will be all reaching prosperity and faster things. And it's a nice vision to have the Czech Republic as rich as Austria. Why not? You were always much richer than the Austrian part of the monarchy, by the way. Why? Because you have wonderful geographic and natural resources and industrial cores which are still alive today and strong for the future. And so you could easily be richer than us, but only in the euro. And your politicians don't allow you because they want to defend you. And it's the same with the Austrians, who always say, the Austrian politicians, and I don't want to bash the Czechs here, but the Austrian politicians, who is a very small economy in a big market of the world, yeah, we are just this 500 billion GDP in a world of 115 trillion. And so the reason why we say not to Mercosur, no to free trade with America, no to free trade because that's very terrible, while in reality the EU is a free trade system with 73 free trade agreements with most of the world, and that's the reason why Austria has developed so beautifully, because via the EFTA we were always integrated in the free trade system which the EU has established from 1916 onwards. Yeah? And so we are against it because it sounds nice, I protect you. I protect you from Brussels. I protect you from Mercosur because it's big danger. And then you vote for this politician. This is the thing in Czech Republic and Austria. The truth is that we are rich because we have a free trade system which the EU has established. Of course, Mercosur is a very good agreement. Of course, it's very good to have free trade with India and the Philippines. Of course, we should do that, and it makes us all much richer. And of course, the Czech Republic should be in the Eurozone. The faster, the better for everybody, you and us.
Anyone else?
I would like to ask, what is your opinion on the Slovak-Austrian relations nowadays, and if you think we are also becoming neutral as a country?
Yeah, on Slovakia in my life, I really love this country because in the 90s it was like a dark hole full of pro-Russian mafia, crime and disaster, and everybody was saying in the debate, because I was working with this parliamentarian in the European Parliament who was in charge of Slovakian EU negotiations. Mr. Rübig, he was, that's why I know Jorinda and Miklos, because I was his advisor, Mr. Rübig, and we were working 6 years together on exactly that issue. And when in the 90s, basically, Slovakia was a lost case, and we have written it off. And we said exactly like today with Serbia, I said everybody can join the European Union, but not Slovakia. That was the line. Then suddenly you had 98, and you had a very wonderful coalition, very fragile, a lot of parties together. And Jorinda was making his bicycle marathon through the country, and he became very famous. And then he transformed the country wonderfully into a pro-European country. And he has introduced with Miklos the flat tax, 19%. This was a hooray moment. He became an international celebrity with that. And congratulations, and the whole automotive industry came into your industrial clusters, and you became rich. So far, so successful to join NATO, and then EU, and then the Eurozone as the only Eastern European countries, main Eastern European countries, to be in the Eurozone as well. Congratulations, fantastic. And then you had to pay as well the fees for the Greek default. And this became so unpopular in Slovakia that the pro-reformers have lost, and the Russians in their rollback phase. You have always to understand, when Putin, everything in European politics is mirrored with Russian politics. So there was one phase of Putin from 2000 to 2008, and then basically came also the financial crisis. And imagine, the Russians always believe in Marxist-Leninism. Marxist-Leninism always says capitalism can never work. There will be always a crisis because the system is unstable. It will be a crisis. When the crisis comes, there will be war. And when the war comes, it's an opportunity for communism and for Russia. So this is in 1921, which has led to the Second World War. This is the same in 2008. For Putin, this was the moment of truth of his beliefs as a KGB officer. So what he did, and there was the moment when the Slovaks had to pay for the Greeks, and Slovakia was always a country which is very identity weak, like Austria, like the Czech Republic. You are also a mix between everybody, between Germans and the Slovaks and Czechs and Hungarians and Romas. So there is a lot of insecurity in your country, and you can always exploit it with your Russia. And it's wonderful because it's logistically between Ukraine and Austria, so it's a wonderful target. And then you put a lot of money, a lot of agents, a lot of effort into it, and the Europeans we are not a secret service organization. We are just having rules, we distribute the money according to EU regulations, and we are not working like the Russians. The Russians put it in suitcases, and they have operatives, and they fund the political parties, and they do it like this, and then they said, Slovak is the target, we get it back. And they got it back. And the operative is Mr. Fico, and he is now in charge of the country, more or less. He is not as powerful as in Serbia, Vucic, because he has only 22%. And he has other coalition partners who has to maneuver. So not all is lost in Slovakia. It's a wonderful country. It's in the Eurozone. Congratulations. And there will be a moment where Mr. Fico will be losing his election and his electoral support. And the sooner, the better for everybody. And I'm optimistic that you have also this student protest. And I was not participating, but many of my Austrian friends went also to Bratislava to participate in the the youth movement against Fico, and then hopefully this will crystallize in an electoral victory of pro-European forces. And again, all these things are connected to Ukraine and Russia. If we lose in Ukraine, of course, these forces will be, and then Fico will win again. If we win in Ukraine, and if Russia will be basically defeated and hopefully dismantled, and their efforts and their opportunities to fund resistance against European mainstream in Slovakia and Serbia and in other countries will be, of course, much smaller. So I think I'm actually very optimistic on all these issues. You will see we will win, and we will win all these debates. Yeah. But it is, of course, so that the Russians are also very capable enemies, and they find their friends, and then they know what to do to make them successful with hundreds and thousands of media bots in Novosibirsk or in Leningrad, or with other kind of forms of disinformation. And then they are also playing their cards, and they have won for some years in Slovakia because they know it's a soft identity country with many issues, and they know exactly how to play that, and they have a lot of feelings of inferiority towards the West, and they know how to do that. Yeah? They play on the clavier of the insecurities, yeah? And then they won for some years, but they will lose in the long term.
I'm sure Jakob has a question on his mind.
Well, when you were talking about the integration of Western Balkan countries into the EU, do you think they are ready? Do you think they meet the Copenhagen criteria?
Yes, that's a good question we had also in the case of Czech Republic and Slovakia. That's always a good question. Even you can say, is Austria fully developed market democracy when you have the Minister of Justice being appointing the state prosecutor and controlling who will prosecute, yeah? If you know that debate. Yeah. You have also in the Czech Republic many things, and you have also in Romania many things. If we are in the search for the perfect European country, which fulfills all the criteria, don't look to Germany, which has so many issues which they have not implemented fully in terms of, for example, the free trade agreement with Canada, they have not ratified. So if we want perfection, like full, beautiful Albania, which is perfect, we will wait 1,000,000 years to come. And if we want perfect Slovakia, it will take a long time. And everybody of us, because you're political science students, you certainly have many ideas how Czech Republic can be better and more beautiful, more fair, that's the normal thing. But absolutely perfection, I think we cannot look into countries in the third round of enlargement, which is the most difficult. And why it's the most difficult round which comes up now? Because we are integrating now countries which were part of the Soviet Union or part of the Ottoman Empire. And in that Ottoman Empire, there was very little what we call modern civilization and achievements in any terms, yeah? Especially in their periphery. Maybe in Istanbul and in their center, but in Albania, in Kosovo, in Macedonia, there was very little form of investment, what we call modern civilization, in terms of infrastructure, governance, or civil economic structure or education of the people. This didn't happen, and then there were 2 world wars and Yugoslavia and all this injustice, and then there was, so don't expect perfection. If you ask me if Albania is ready for the EU, I can guarantee you it is. It is a perfect, beautiful country where we now from the European Union in the last 25 years have invested heavily in preparation of the regulatory terms, and this has worked very well, as well in Montenegro, as well in North Macedonia. All 3 countries are in NATO, and they are absolutely ready for the European Union in 2029, and I ask you for your support. When it comes to Bosnia and Kosovo, it's of course a little bit more complicated. In the case of Kosovo, why? Because in Kosovo, actually, I worked 5 years in Kosovo exactly the Ministry of Economy. It's all prepared. You know, Kosovo is wonderfully prepared when it comes to regulatory things. Yeah, you find everything is adopted to EU. Everything was built from the beginning, like in the EU. So everything is done. So you can immediately give Kosovo into the EU. But the problem is that Slovakia has not recognized Kosovo because they're very smarter than in Germany and in Austria. You really know your Balkan politics. You are like a center for that. Yeah? Bravo. Huh? And there is not a bit of a Russian influence or Slavic nostalgia or communist links with Serbia from some oligarchs. No, it's that you really good in foreign policy in Slovakia. With all respect to your great nation, you know, the Americans have recognized Kosovo and the Germans. Yeah? It's more or less the lead powers of the West, the UK, France, Italy. But Slovakia, no. And Romania, no. And now you know that you in Slovakia have a very specific problem with Hungary. And you have also in Romania a specific problem with Hungary. Orban is always saying beautifully at this day, and I think it's the 4th of June, at the Trianon Day, he is always putting a map up which includes part of your country and part of Romania. It's a very popular thing of a EU Prime Minister to do, and very nice neighborly relations. And then you say, oh God. And then because of this, or because of whatever other reasons, darker reasons, you don't recognize Kosovo. And then you say, we have not recognized, we don't take it. Yeah? And the same the Romanians and the Spanish because of the Basque, and then you have the Cyprus because of the Northern Cyprus, and then you have also Greece because whatever. Yeah, everybody has its small reason. There's always a reason between the Czechs not being in the Eurozone, the Slovaks not being recognized in Kosovo, or the Spanish, because something specific is in this political system which is so important that you cannot do the normal thing. And that's how we are in Europe, and that's why our enemies are thinking we are a little bit funny continent, because we cannot even all recognize Kosovo, which is now since 2008 recognized. And by the way, it's not the same like Crimea, or not the same all these things which Putin is always putting on, because I was visiting most of the war graves in Kosovo, and I have talked to hundreds of survivors and families of them, and I've gone with them to the funerals as well, to the memorial, because they told me their stories. It was the Serb occupation power which killed all these people. It was not some fantasies, really, they are lying there on the ground. Yeah? This is the fact. It was an effort of genocide. You can always discuss, was it a done genocide, was it an effort of genocide? But these people, 13,000, were really killed, and 50,000 houses were really destroyed. And so then we have made this intervention, and it was justified and fair to do it. I always say American bombs have liberated Vienna as well in 1945, and my grandparents' house was destroyed, and they were not happy about it. Yeah? So nobody is happy if you are on the wrong side of American bombs, but without it we would be Nazis. And without it Kosovo would not be free, but the Albanians there would be dead, because that was the plan, or 1 million of them driven out of the country. So we have created Kosovo ultimately, we have built it, and now 5 of our own don't recognize it, and then we don't want to take it in the European Union for that. So it is a bit confusing here. Now comes the case of Bosnia. In Bosnia we also intervened because the Serbs were killing the Muslims, Bosniaks there. And they killed them really in 10,000s. They burned them with fuel, and they have made concentration camps. Yeah? This is real. I visited many of these places, yeah? And they have done all these crimes. Yeah? Then we had to intervene. Was it easy for us? It's never easy for a powerful, strong European politician. I have already made this effort. The use of military force against a European country, neither in the case of 95 in Bosnia or in Kosovo, is easy. And it's still today contentious. But it was the right thing to do to stop exactly these horrendous crimes which the Serbs have committed. If you go to Sarajevo in the summer, I recommend you as political science students, you should. Everybody in the world should be in Sarajevo once and go into tunnels where they're supplied and talk to the survivors. And so this is very educative. I did it with my children some years ago. So Go there, learn about it, and then you say, okay, the Serbs did it, we went in with military force, we have stopped them, we have bombed their positions, they have taken our guys in custody and in as hostage to protect them, and we have even used more bombs, and then they gave up. And ultimately we even saved the Serbs, because the Bosnian-Croat alliance in '95, backed by the American power and the NATO, was very successful. The Serbs would have lost basically all of Bosnia. They would have been driven back into Serbia in case we really had allowed the Bosnian and Croats. And the Bosnians are to this day very angry that the Americans have forced them to stop the progress, because many of the cities of Bosnia in the north, where basically the Serbs have genocided the Bosnian Muslims out of this area, and they would be liberated and today part of the Bosnian part of Bosnia and Herzegovina, if they would have been allowed to reconquer, and they were winning. But then the Americans said, let's stop and let's make 50-50, basically here, come to Dayton 30 years ago, and we don't let you out, and if the Serbs don't want, we will bomb Belgrade. And so the Serbs had no support from Milosevic, and so the peace came. And of course it's a very difficult country, but I guarantee you once, and I say that in television regularly in the Balkans, in Austria, I'm not so often in television, but in the Balkans quite often, because my positions there are very popular. I say, in case Dodik comes again to do secessionist threats, or he does it, yeah, or he uses military violence against the Bosnian authorities, yeah, he will be jailed in prison. And my position was very unpopular 5 years ago. I was calling for bombs on Banja Luka, and then some young people from Banja Luka called me, why do you want to bomb my families? I never wanted to bomb anybody, and I have just my Twitter account. Yeah. But I'm not dangerous. I want to make it very clear. But the Americans are always flying very low over Banja Luka with the airplanes from the aircraft carrier Truman or Roosevelt or however they are called, who are in Split. Then they fly very low about Banja Luka and make a big noise. And then Mr. Dodik stops his aggressive secessionist rhetoric. It works like that. You can like it or not, but it's the truth. And this is the way they understand it. And I just tweeted, in case you want secession and you do it, you will be bombed. Then he was very angry about me and said I'm a warmonger and all these things. Yeah. But the reality is, this is how peace is kept in Bosnia, obviously with American firepower, and that's the way it is, and it has to be. If Dodik goes further, he will experience the harsh realities of European justice and law. And by the way, Austria and Germany has just forbidden him entering Austria and German territory, and you Czechs could also join that. Why are you allowing him, who is basically going to Putin during wartime? He has given one medal, here, at the State Order of Republika Srpska, to Putin during the war. What's that? And you allow him to enter? Please no. Give him an entry ban and tell him that this is unacceptable behavior, and there are consequences in Europe for playing with our patience and by promoting genocidal Putin dictator, and also that one. But nevertheless, also Bosnia, where the majority of the people want to be in NATO, where the majority of people want to recognize Kosovo, is a wonderful country which has deserved our solidarity and support, and it's also prepared. So all the 5 countries are ready for the European Union, and they will join the European Union. If not in 29, in 35. Point is, Serbia is not ready. So Serbia cannot join, because why? The European Union is not a funny association of friends who are sitting around drinking beer like we are. We are nice. But the situation is about not only values, but we want to have a political union with common position, respected by the world, able to project power and influence and really shape the world order of the future. This is what we want, this is what we believe, I think everybody believes. You want to be serious. But when you have people like Fico and Orban on the table, who are openly voting for the enemy and working in many ways for Putin, this is very much a blocking situation. And of course, you cannot have that as well imported in the case of President Vučić. And as long as he will be in power, and as long as there will be such a policy, which is basically a pro-Serbian policy, obviously he cannot, and Serbia will not join the European Union. You can find other opinions on that. You can, because Serbia is a wonderful country with Serbia is wonderful people and great economic opportunities. It's all fine to invest. They can join, and they are actually connected already with our currency system because we have a currency link with Serbia, the EU candidate. We have spent 10 billion euros on Serbia renovation and upgrade in the last 20 years. So we have done really a lot of things. So they can economically join, but politically, we have, I listened, I cannot quote him, but you know, we have, we as the West, we have actually bought 2 billion euros of Serb weapons for Ukraine during the war. And they were a very good defense industry. They were very useful and they made great business, and thank you very much. And we needed, of course, the weapons, and we bought them. We as West, not me personally, have not 2 billion euros, but the thing is that this is all totally fine. But as long as they have not closed the airspace, they have not joined the sanction regime, they have not joined the foreign policy, they have military alliance with Russia in terms of common maneuvers, they have a military center in Niš, in the southern capital, where they allow Russian operatives to roam and to supervise Kosovo, and they have a free trade agreement with Russia. I mean, this is all absolutely incompatible, and it's not my personal preferences. I think I have now, in the last 35 years, I've started my first visit to Serbia supporting the Serb students. Actually, like here, it was a bit more listeners in '92. And I have been, I think, I don't know, 30 times in Serbia in the 2000s, and in many times when Serbia was pro-European. Also later, and I really have many friends and fans and not so fans in Serbia, but nevertheless, we have to be objective. Yeah? It's not about me personally having preferences or being provocative to Serbia, but the ultimate truth is, in the EU, we are not fools. You have to recognize Kosovo, you have to support with Ukraine, you have to stop our. Now, this is the ultimate list we have to, man, this is, we have a free trade agreement when you work with Russia, our enemy, how to do that, yeah? When you don't close the airspace, when we all close the airspace, yeah? When you, this cannot be, and it will not be. And so all the others can join, and then they will have a veto over the accession of Serbia. That will be interesting, because there are many open questions from the Balkan regions. The Croatians have a big question. What about the war crimes? Where are the apologies? Where are the indemnities, the reparations? And they are already EU member. And in Croatia, they have no nonsense for Serbia. Be sure about it. So the Serb accession will already, by the Croatians, be extremely complicated. Yeah? And then you have also many, many other issues coming from the Balkan wars, which have to be resolved as well. And ultimately, Serbia is the aggressor state in 4 different wars. Yeah? And they have still not sent all the people to the war crime tribunal in Den Haag, and they have not paid indemnities. They have killed a lot of people whose destiny is still unclear, and 1,500 people from Kosovo are to this day unaccounted for, and they are in some mass graves in Serbia. So the families are asking, Mr. Kurti, have you forgotten our guys? And so please, for Serbia, this is until there is a real effort of change, like in 2000. In 2000 we had a Serbia, which I supported very much, and Mr. Cincic was ready to deliver Milosevic to Den Haag, and he was killed for that in 2003. And then basically the people were much more again moving back to the Russian side. And especially it's connected again with the rise of Putin to power. Always see the timeline. In 2008 he became prime minister, the economic crisis, and then he came back in 2012, and then Mr. Vucic was president in 2012, 3 months later. Because there are 3 countries Mr. Putin will never give up as long as he's alive, yeah? And this is Belarus, Ukraine, and Serbia. These are the 3 pillars of Russian power in Eastern Europe, and these are where he personally invested 25 years of his career to keep the power there. And Belarus was before already keeping back to the Russian camp, and then it was Ukraine in '99, and it was Serbia from 2003 on. And so, as long as Putin is in power, these 3 countries will be always under heavy pressure, militarily or politically, financially. And this will not break until Putin is gone. So, the Western Balkans, 5 years, 1 no. And please, as fast as possible.
Do you think it would be
on my YouTube page, you will see many of my visits to Belgrade and I was often traveling. When I lived in Kosovo as a development worker, I was obviously going by car many times for Serbia. And it's a very nice country, very good infrastructure, very beautiful and very friendly people, because I have also had a holiday house in Montenegro together with my ex-wife. And I speak some Serbian, and I can drink rakia, lots of it. And you know, I'm really now actually with my new wife. She insisted that I stop drinking alcohol. So please, just to make the case. But I speak also some Serbian, actually quite okayish for entertainment reasons. And so ultimately, I'm very good with everybody who is nice to me. But how it all happened in my little adventure with the Serb and the Bosnian Serb authorities was like this. There was a terrible war started by Putin against Ukraine, which these are my friends. These are our European fellow Christians. And Putin came on the 24th of February 2022 with all his military and wanted to destroy this country and subjugate it. So we in Europe have done the right thing. In solidarity, we stand with Ukraine. We have spent about 250 billion of support together for Ukraine in military and in financial assistance. We are guaranteeing the financial support of the Ukrainian state, and we also will guarantee ultimately the victory. You will be sure about that one. Even when it's much too slow, which I also think, but nevertheless, ultimate victory, I have no doubt in my heart. Then there was one country in Serbia, which in that moment, when this terrible thing happened, it is the most terrible thing which happened in European continent since the Balkan Wars or since World War II. You can make the extremes, but it is very terrible and it's very obvious. You know, there was no Ukrainian provocation, or there is no Ukrainian Nazi which was starting this war. It was Putin putting the army on alert. He put in 2021 all his 200,000 or 150,000 people on the army, and he gave them the order by their own surprise to attack. So this is the situation. Then Serbia doesn't join. Serbia says, no, this is all totally different. So then I went by bus from Vienna to Belgrade with my little telephone here, and I made my statements on the main square of Belgrade that this is absolutely unacceptable behavior, that Serbia has also to join the sanctions, close the airspace, and support Ukraine. And then somebody picked up, some politician picked up my tweets. It ended up in the info portals, online portals of Serbia, and so I became a little bit of a non-so-friendly person in the media, and drew my attention to my humble personality. And then I said, okay, if you treat me like this, I will come back again. And I went then, after by bus from Vienna, I decided the southern entrance, and I went to Skopje, and I rented a car, and I went from Skopje to the border. And there, the nice UTPA of Serbia, that's the Secret Service of Serbia, they have stopped me, and they had me already in the system, and they wanted to put some questions to me. And then I tweeted, here, help me, the Serbs are getting me. And then this was the guys with the, they had this, like the sheriffs in the FBI movie, they have them come. They said, we are here now, we want to know what you do, and are you powerful, what are your friends? And are you a member of Austrian Kosovo Friendship Society, the most powerful unit of the world? Yeah. How much money you have? And I was 2 hours in this container with these two guys who were permanently questioning in very bad English about me. And I was very friendly, and I always told them, watch my YouTube, because everything I do, I also do this in public. I'm a very transparent person. I just say, please recognize Kosovo, break with Russia, recognize Ukraine's independence fight, and please be normal Europeans, then will be your best friend in Europe. And we love Serbia, we have great business together, and you will be in the EU, I will support you. But as long as you don't recognize Kosovo, threaten the military. Vucic put the military on alarm in 7 different occasions at the Kosovo border in the last 3 years. 7 times he put his military mobilized 20 kilometers away from the Kosovo border, where our soldiers, Austrian soldiers, Czech soldiers, are having the security parameter obligation to defend Kosovo. These are your guys and our guys here, and Serbia puts his guys on the other side ready to strike. 7 times in the last 3 years. How friendly is that? How friendly is that? And yeah, this is the situation. And then I said to these guys in the box, yeah, okay, I'm a nice guy, and ultimately they have texted to the superior. And then I said, I will be nice, so just say my things, and I go home. And then they let me enter Serbia. And then I went to Vranje, that's the regional capital, and I went there because it's the Albanian minority living there in Preko. This is the city of Bujanovac and of so-called Prešovo Valley, where there was also violence in 2000. I went there, I made my videos, I called for federal Serbia to respect the minorities, like the Czechs have to respect the minorities, and the Greeks, also the Serbians have to respect their Bosnians, their Hungarians, their Slovaks, their Turks, yeah, the Albanians. Yeah. This is simply what we do in Europe. We don't discriminate our minorities. If you want to be in the EU, discrimination of minorities is not a really thing to do. And I made my statements. By coincidence, I met this Secret Service operative again on the street. I invited him for coffee. He didn't want to have coffee with me, but it was okay. And he was a nice guy. He also did his duty, and he let me go. And I published my videos, and I went back. And then I went once back to Serbia in 2023 in the summer on my Bosnian tour. I went to the Bosnian area of Sanjak, and I also made statements that also the Bosnians at Sanjak, that's the area on the border to Montenegro, they should be also treated like human beings, like Europeans. They are Europeans. Just because they are Muslims, they have no rights to live decent and all must go to Germany to live decent. I mean, is this the idea of Europe? I mean, this is not very nice. This is not European. You cannot be like that. Huh? And the Serbs are like that at the moment, the government. Yeah? And that's not fair. That's not good. That's not what we have Europe for. And so I said that. And then I went, this was my Eastern attack. And then I went once more by airplane from Tirana back into Belgrade, but I knew it will be better not for me to stay overnight. So I had an evening flight from Belgrade to Vienna back. And so this was my fourth time in 2023. And they already checked me at the airport again, but I was nice enough to squeeze in, and I'm actually not so important, and they know that I'm not so important ultimately to be a big issue for them, and they know that I have a lot of friends in Austria because I'm actually grow up with my nice colors, and I was a student leader, so I'm a very big personal friend with many politicians who are now in power. So they decided not to harass me because what to do with me. And so I had my 4 entry points, and I was then in Banja Luka as well. And it was funny as it was, but now I'm married again, and a new wife, she told me that she doesn't think it's so funny. So I don't do that anymore. Huh? So I don't go there, but it's not because I'm personally afraid. Okay, I'm a little bit. You can always be, when you do these things and you're recognized as a semi-public personality, you can always find somebody who is also a bit funny and not so nice and beat you up. Because some people in Vienna, they have seen me and they have made me unfriendly gestures, and they have spit in front of my feet, and these things can happen. But in principle, I'm a nice guy, and I want Europe to be strong and happy. I want our friends to succeed. So I have nothing against Serbs as well. When they're in the media, all the time I tweet something, they take it up, not all the time, but often, and they say I'm the najveći Srbomarac na svetu, the greatest Serbian hater in the world, which is a bit too much for me as a humble person. And I have always cared for Serbia as I care for any other country. I'm also not the agent of the Albanian drug cartel, as they claim, or anything else. I'm a poor consultant. I believe in all the things I say, and I just say, we should all be European. And what it means to be European is to be fair to each other, to be equal to each other, to protect each other when we are in need, and to support each other, and to believe in a European solidarity and values. And this is including the Ukrainians in Donbass, and in Crimea. This includes the Crimean Tatars in Crimea. This includes the Albanian in the Brno Valley. This includes the Hungarian in Slovakia. This includes the Slovenian in Austria. And this includes the Albanian immigrants in Austria as well. And the Slovaks in Czech Republic and whoever else. And the Romas who is here, who is European, and everybody else who is living here. We have a basic legal system. We believe in the protection of human rights, and this is what we fought the World War IV. We won the Cold War. We will win also this war, which Putin is, and we were justified in fighting Milosevic and using military force to defend exactly these values, and we are justified to defend the Ukrainians again now in their fight for exactly this normal, decent European standards of human life and prosperity, protection of property, and safety of their lives. And this is what we can expect also from the Serbian leadership. And they are not doing it, they will not be in the European Union. And it's not personal, it's a bit personal between Vucic and Vulin and me. I was actually very happy when they made a tweet, bye-bye from Vienna, because they will never see Vienna again. And they love to hide the money in Vienna, and they love to meet their diaspora in Vienna, and they will not be welcomed anymore in Austria. In the case of Dodik, and I hope also that Vucic and also others will get an entry ban into Austria. And if you're serious in the Czech Republic with the things, then please don't give pro-Russian kind of politicians of the Balkans this kind of support, which your former president, Mr. Zeman, he was the best buddy of all those guys. And is that a nice thing? Are you proud of that? I don't think so. And recognize Kosovo, my friend from Slovakia. It's the good thing to do. You anyhow have your Slovak soldiers in Kosovo. And if the Serbs attack, your guys under order will defend them with their life. So please, why not do the right thing from the start?
The future will recognize the future.
I think this was a beautiful ending to our formal part of discussion, of the debate. Your summarization of the European values, that was all, like, yes, we sign it with all our might. And thank you so much for coming. And I invite you all to come and join our Stammtisch and discuss in a more informal manner. So thank you all for coming, and thank you, Mr. Günther Pellingayan, for coming here.
It was a pleasure. Thanks a lot. Thank you, Brian.